All right, guys, welcome back to Revamp. Now we're back with the Dodge Ute, and obviously, as you saw, we got all the chassis rail and some of the other bits and pieces done in the last episode. We still got the suspension to put back together, but as you saw from that little montage and start, things have got a little bit out of control. Well, not out of control, they've just escalated a little bit. We had a spare set of extractors left over that didn't fit another project, and they will fit the Ute. Now, yeah, Graham has made up the engine pipe part that connected to the original manifold, but in the end, extractors are better, right? Yeah, so we're fitting up these extractors. We're still just using the modified factory manifold for the intake side of things because it's nothing special performance-wise. It's just a 245 with a 2-barrel Holley adapted to it. That's about it. So let's get into the episode where we're fitting up these extractors, look at the exhaust, and we'll hopefully get the suspension all fitted in as well. Yeah. So we went over all the studs, and we're going to change a few, but we end up just putting, running the thread tap over the end of them to make sure the threads are okay. They've come up all right. Obviously got a new gasket, aligns on the studs, and does have an alignment dowel just near the front here. So you just pop that on. And then the intake manifold will align on the rear stud here and the little dowel pin at the front. And the exhaust is awesome because it aligns on one stud at the front and nothing else all the way along. So great fun. Especially this exhaust system is in 2 pieces. So it's going to be awesome trying to get it to line up. So we kind of put the intake on, then realised that we couldn't actually fit the extractors on. So now we've put the extractors on. Graham's underneath the car, heavily contemplating how he's actually going to get this all to work. But these extractors are 2-piece extractors, so you've got this rear section is separate to the front section. Kind of designed off the, in a way, a little bit off the original RT extractors. I think they're designed for a twin system like the original RT Chargers had. So I think we're going to just try and button it all up, align it all on the head, and then Graham will have the unenviable task of trying to make it all work underneath to join up to the exhaust system. Right, basically with the 2 halves of the extractors sort of sitting there, we've got the one aligning bolt in the front. We're going to try and get the intake on. Now, remembering it's got one alignment hole at the back and the dowel at the front. So just loosely get that nut on the back. Then try to get that little dowel at the front to line up. I'm having a slight fitment issue here. You can see that number 1 pipe is hard up against the intake. Now this is actually the problem with these extractors on a different engine and a different intake manifold. This one is actually a stock intake manifold adapted for that 2-barrel Holley. So these extractors should be fitting fine. All right, well, take 2 after a little massaging of both the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold. All right, you can see after that small massaging of both the pipe and the intake manifold that they just fit together. I would have liked that front exhaust pipe to come straight a little bit further, but it's going to be fine. All right, so from here, I've got the exhaust just to sort of move around to get the alignment with the intake correct. But these special sort of triangle-ish shape washers, they all go on here to hold it together. So that's a little bit of fiddling around to try and get all that lined up and all tightened down. So, I'm not going to film all of it. So once we do that, we're well on the way to getting it running again. And Graham can start adapting the exhaust that he already started making to these new headers. All right, guys, so before we put the suspension together with the new parts, obviously we've got to take the old parts out. So one thing you are going to need for these Valiants is this special square ball joint socket. Now you see it's square inside. They're available from all the Chrysler parts places. Essential really to do your upper ball joints properly. So the reason you do need it is that the upper ball joint here is actually kind of threaded into the upper arm. Now, if you press it in and out, you will damage the arm. All right, make sure it's on nice and firm. And they can be quite firm to get off. And it will firmly wind out. And you can see there, it's got sort of like a thread on it. So with these upper bushes, if you haven't seen me get them out of, say, a Holden HQ arm or Holden front suspension arm, I'll put a link up in the corner, but pretty similar. And that arm's ready to put the new bushes and the new ball joint in. Alright, so I've got our new parts laid out here. You can see our radius arm bush, bump stop, lower ball joint, upper control arm bushes, lower control arm bush. This is our upper control arm ball joint. These are our turret ends and some other little parts to go with the upper control arm bushes. And that's upper ball joint done. I just find a socket that fits nicely over there. It is quite easy to bend these lips around sometimes, so sometimes just a flat surface works better. So we want to have something that the bush can press into. And you can see we don't damage the nylon there at all. Pressed all the way home. Do the other one. Step one, simple. Now in the Chrysler bush, they have these outer washers. The teeth go outwards. All right, that's our upper control arm done. Now, our lower control arm is a bit of a different story. You can see we've still got the radius rod on there. We'll take this bump stop off. Right, now we need to press that out. We actually, for the type of bush we have, you actually have to leave the outer cup of the bush in. You don't have to remove that, but most of the time the shaft is going to come out with the rubber either in pieces or, yeah, stuck to the shaft. So you want to just try and set this up in the press and do it. Push it out from that side where the torsion bar goes in and just press the shaft out, and hopefully the rubber bush comes out with it. And that is what you end up with. Bit of a twisted bush and the shaft with the inner sleeve. Now double check if you're using the urethane inner, double check whether you need to leave that sleeve on or not. We were told we had to, but upon measuring, it wasn't going to fit. So we're going to take that off. We're just going to put a little heat on the sleeve, and that'll just expand it and it can come off. So with the bush in the outer shell, on measuring, we found to remove the inner sleeve. Like I say, check with your bush manufacturer. If you're using a rubber bush, whole different process. I'm not going to get into that now because we're not using a rubber bush. But they say to put a small amount of lube on the shaft there, and basically it firm presses into there. So that is it. That's how they say to do that in a bush. Like I say, I'm only going by what they say for the particular bush that we're using. Your supply might be different, but that is it for the inner bush. And that is actually ready to put in the car. All right, so we've got all our parts ready, all the bushes and ball joints in where they need to be. I like to start with the control arms, just for a good basis, particularly the lower one. That includes the radius rod bush in the front here. So we'll probably do lower, pop the upper in, put the torsion bar in, and then start piecing it all back together. Now, torsion bars, apparently, pretty much as long as they stay on the left and the right side of the car, they are marked L and R, or the odd numbers on the left and the even numbers on the right. So apparently it doesn't matter if they go which way around they go. I guess it's nice to have the correct numbers at the end where you can see them, so you can make sure that it is in the correct side of the car in the future. But yeah, front or back apparently does not matter. Really, the next thing to do is get your adjuster in and make sure that adjuster is in the right spot, or make sure your torsion bar is in the right spot. So you really want this pulled right as far down as possible. And I'm actually thinking that I may have to change the position of this torsion bar slightly, because you want to have that torsion bar like lined up and in with the lower control arm down as low as possible. So that way you've got plenty of room to tighten tension into the torsion bar to hold the weight of the car. I'm not entirely sure if I'm happy with the alignment of the torsion bar in the control arm, but it seems that there's only really one location that is feasible for the adjuster to fit in. I'm just going to have to see when it adjusts, if it adjusts up, okay? But we can go ahead, put the bump stop, put the spindle, brakes, all that back together. And don't forget your little clip in the back of the torsion bar. Now, the lower ball joint on the Valiant actually bolts on with 2 bolts and has a steering arm attached. So it bolts onto the spindle. So we've got all our brakes on, got the tyre on, we've got grease nipples in, and it's all ready to get some adjustment in the ride height. So we can take it to a suspension specialist to get a proper wheel alignment done. Right, so I've sort of cut out as much as we want to cut out to start with. There's a little bit just sort of towards the inner edge there where it drops down, looks a bit rusty. We're hoping we've got enough material there to weld onto. If not, obviously we'll have to cut a bit more out, but we're just trying to keep as much as we can. We've also got a couple of extra brackets in around the front here that we need to weld in that were rusted out. They just support the battery tray at the front. And then hopefully that'll give us a good support to make the battery tray nice and strong. So with the suspension basically done, just needing wheel alignment, just finishing up a few things here around the battery tray. You can see where it had the big hole, we put some plate in here. We made it a little bit thicker just to support the battery tray a bit better where the bolts go through. And yeah, we are bolting this in now instead of having it weld in. I just feel if there's ever an acid spill or something from a battery in the future, it can be, the battery tray can be removed and all cleaned out properly. So we had a little extra bracket that we had to weld on around the front there. And yeah, we've just been tidying up in there. We're just going to put a bit of rust converter, just this this spray-on rust converter. It's got a black finish to it. Just to, after we've wire wheeled some of these areas, realistically, where do we stop? Do we end up taking the entire skirt out and replacing it? Because we're trying to fix little bits of rust here, there, we've done what we need to do to make the battery sit in there nice and safe and strong. So we'll get a bit of this black rust converter on there, and then we'll put a bit of white top coat on it and should be good. So you can see just underneath in the inner guard here, one of them we put a little plate on there just to support the factory sheet metal, and the other one you can see where we've repaired the big hole that was rusted in the inner guard. Once we've done that, we can match all the paint up with the rest of the inner guard, all the black that we've done there, and that'll match up with the frame rail job that we've been doing as well. So that's the spray on rust converter. Just put it on the basically rusty areas and where we've got a bit of bare metal. There we go, with a touch of paint around the place. Brand new battery tray, and even nice piece of rubber. We've repaired the rust, strengthened the area, and should be good to hold a battery for, I don't know, pushing another 50 years. Alright, so I don't know if you can hear me, I'll probably subtitle this anyway, but you can see Graham's got the heat gun there. We've just got the car running off the extractors. The big steel bar reasoning for doing this is that when we fitted the extractors, they were a little bit tight on the floor, just where it went past the gearbox cross member. So we're heating the extractors to get them to try and naturally bend down just a little bit to give us some clearance. So when we pull that steel bar out, it should give us probably about half the clearance of what we've got with the bar. Alright, so now we've got some heat in the exhaust. What we'll do is we'll let it cool down, and hopefully with that big, like, 35 mil bar, square bar we've got in there, it'll cool down and hopefully get that exhaust with that little bit of clearance to that cross member that we're after. Alright, just gonna pop this out. Graham might grab it or we'll let it hit the floor. We'll see. Oh, I tell you what.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. I tell you what, there's a good, like, 10 mil probably all around it. I'm gonna call that it pretty good, eh?
Because it's the pipe anyway. You're not going to get it to come up around that direction, I don't think.
Yeah. So, like, the way the pipe, like, look, I can fit my little finger in there.
Yeah.
Just. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. The Speedo cable, I might get a bit of heat sleeve or something on it, because it's going to try and sit on it, on the pipe up here. But yeah, we can see how well it fits up with our exhaust that Graham had already started making. You can see he's just grabbing it out from under the Datsun there. So we started making this exhaust, and as you see, we didn't quite get to the point of fitting it. So what Graham's doing basically now is trying to get the exhaust system pieced together so that we can try to use as much of what we already had made up to suit the original exhaust manifold, and yeah, adapt onto these extractors. So I've got a bit of exhaust just situated in here. At this stage, looks like we're going to have a clamp joint there, so that we can pull the the engine pipe section off, run back straight line, nice and tight, and then back to the muffler here we'll have a clamp joint, and then back here we have another clamp joint which will eventually go to a mount up there, and then obviously through to the S-bend and out the back. So we're just sort of getting it dummied up in there at the moment, and yeah, it's looking pretty good, nice and simple. Woo! Has this welder got a mind of its own? So with a couple of clamps in place, you can see the muffler's now hanging by itself. We've got the kind of a reproduction of the original style strap, but we've had to do a little bit of a mount adjustment up there. So just in there. And Graham's just starting to do the rest of the S-bend here, so we can come out the back past that exhaust mount there, hopefully, fingers crossed. Ooh, baby.
Nice.
Ooh.
Does that look good?
Yeah, like, I mean, we'll have to put another little kink on it somewhere. So, here we go. We've pretty much got the exhaust tacked in, which is pretty simple at the back. just a simple straight out. We've got to still just muck around with the mount here at the back a little bit. Got an old one on there. We might replace it with one of our replacement ones or adjust this one. Don't know, but yeah, she's basically tacked together. Simple straight out tip. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. So with a pile of pipes that need welding up and the earbuds in, Graham's got a bit of TIG welding to do to finish this exhaust off. Then we'll put probably some high temp paint on it, and she should be good to go. Graham's got this funky little contraption, rotates around so he can move his job into whatever location suits him. Makes welding around these pipes like this just that little bit easier. You can get it into the right position that you want. Pretty cool piece of gear. Well, there we go with a bit of black exhaust paint. You can see we've got exhaust, new muffler, new hangers, all run through. Out the back. Now we haven't painted the back just in case, we've got to trim it off or trim it on an angle or something like that, or put a different exhaust tip or whatever. So we'll touch that up once the owner gives the okay on how it looks at the back. But yeah, it's come out pretty good. Now we've just got to fire it up and see what it sounds like. Alright, so she sounds a lot quieter up the front now, but I suppose we were off the extractors before. Let's go down the back and see what she sounds like. So she's got a little bit of tone. Doesn't sound too bad. So once it's driven for a little while, the exhaust will sort of pack in a bit, and yeah, she'll change tones slightly, but doesn't sound too bad for a 2-inch exhaust system with an actual proper muffler. Thoughts, Graham?
Don't mind it.
It's got the Graham approval. That's a little sound at idle. Got a little burble to it. Yeah, it's got a little smoke to it as well, but that's a different story. Bit of steam. Loves it. All right, guys, well, there you go. That's the repairs that we had to do on this VJ Dodge Ute. We did the chassis rails, we did the suspension rebuild. You saw we had to repair all that battery tray area, which was the root cause of our rust in the chassis rail. We also built an exhaust system for it, which eventually involved changing to extractors from the cast iron manifold as well. So I hope you've enjoyed something a little bit different than working on various types of Holdens, etc. This is, I just took it for a little tentative test drive and hasn't had a wheel alignment yet. They're not difficult, but they can take some little tricks to get the wheel alignment working well on them. So we're waiting for that to be done. Hopefully by the time I get this video out, I might be able to put a bit of driving in at the end of the video. But we're done with this car now, and it's going to go back and more than likely sit next to the VH Charger that you saw I went and picked up with my mate Tony from country. He's definitely what you call a Australian Valiant fan or a Chrysler fan, I guess. So he's just looking forward to really driving this car now that it's got a fully rebuilt front end. Be a little bit more enjoyable to drive, and hopefully a little bit more power with that exhaust system that's not leaking all over the place. So if you like this kind of content, let us know in the comments. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch up with you next time on Next Gen Revamp. All right, so we've put a bit of a dodgy wheel alignment in it, a little bit of adjustment here and there, and me and Tony are just going to take it out for a little test drive, see how it runs with the new exhaust, and yeah, see how it drives not auto steering when you put the brakes on. That'll be helpful. Woo! Oh, those wipers, yeah.
They're quick, aren't they? See how it feels on the brakes.
Doesn't change lanes.
Oh, there's a bit of backlight.
So does it feel like it runs better?
It does, far more responsive.
Yeah.
Picking up a lot quicker. Camel better than it was before. A little bit of a burp there.
Yeah, it might need just a touch more fuel on the idle mixture.
Yeah, just when you give it a little bit, she's burping and
Yeah.
Not bad for a real lumber, mate.
I tell you what, not bad considering I was pretty sure the steering wheel was out of alignment.
It was.
And yeah, I just bunged a random eye vernier measurements in there. Good stuff. Oh yeah, she still needs a bit of a tune up.